Hi guys. Okay, so first of all, it's my birthday week. Pew 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 pew. Yay. As always, with every year, there is a sale on both power hours and the mentorship down below. It's 32 and then, 320. It's my age priced. So you can keep that in mind every year. I do that until I'm like 99 and then good luck. That's going to be 900. But anyway, if that's something that interests you, info on that, like links below. Ooh, also hello, future at me, that forgot to mention that my course is opening in like T-minus 6-ish, 6 days. It's reopening for the last and final round. Not final, but final for a while. Round of, we're gonna work together, write copy, you to put on your portfolio, you get my feedback, you have a group. Cool. Few days left. Cool. Okay, carry on with the video. Let's move into the topic of the video today, which is profitable freelance niches. Now, if you're just here for the short answer, okay, we'll dive into that quickly. But first of all, what you need to know more than anything is that the most profitable freelance niche, however you want to pronounce it, is the one that you care about. Why? Okay, well, one, because you can write about it for hours and I feel like you're tearing your hair out. Think of, back to when you were in school, you're writing papers, you're dying writing about the history of the Queen of France, and you're just so bored, and even though the paper's only 3 pages, you're mentally dying inside, and it takes you like weeks to get this done, maybe even late, maybe you're overdue. It's that feeling, but like now you've got clients you're upsetting, and like it's just the fastest route to burnout if you want to write about things you don't care about that much. I understand needing to write for a paycheck, believe me. Your girl's done it all. But in the most ideal world, you're writing about things you care about, things that don't make you upset. So okay, first of all, for the people who are here for the short answer, the financial industry, always one of the best paying industries because the amount of money that is in it is absurd, along with healthcare. Those two are some of the titans of industry. You need to know what you're talking about. One right now that's huge, obviously, is cryptocurrency. Ideally, you know what you're talking about before you're just telling people to like invest your life savings and then you're wrong. We don't need like a Bernie Madoff situation, little scams going around. We need less of that in the world. But if you know what you're talking about and you know anything about the industry or you care, is it huge? Yes. On top of that, ones that have surprised me, anything in the traditional brick and mortar kind of business, meaning tree removal pays really well, lawn care. Usually these are people who don't care much about SEO and blogging, but like they need the help because obviously that is a very competitive industry based on purely Google results. Like a lot of them don't do branding work and they don't do all that, so their site needs to be as optimized as possible with good copy to convince them why they're better than someone else. One great job I got paid for was writing about kitchen countertops, which I had no business writing about. I don't know. I had to Google so many questions about the difference between like marble and the other stones out there and sizing and installation. But HVAC is another industry that's big. I think because these are kind of industries that aren't like that spicy and fun to write about. As a lot of people love to write about personal development and all these things, and we'll get into that. And I have a whole list of a million different options that you could write about, that I've written about, that I've been paid for, that I've seen people hire for. I made a giant master list that we'll go through. But if you're just here for the short answer, the big titans where there's already money, travel, I'm sure is going to explode in the next few years. Well, actually currently right now, I'm getting a lot of pitches in my inbox from potential clients who are in the travel world because obviously everybody's been cooped up for a year and now they need to get outside. So there are a lot of industries, babies, moms will spend their entire life savings to make sure their child has a good upbringing and care and healthy products and all of that. So anything that's you can just Google like giant industries and maybe you'll find something that interests you. But ideally, okay, if you're just here for that, there you go. Bitcoin, take your product, run with it. Like, if you just want to make money and like, there you go. Become an expert in it. It's probably going to be huge over our lifetime. So like, there you go, be free. Okay, for everybody else who wants to make sure their days aren't miserable and you're writing about things you care about, first of all, sit down and write a list of everything that you have experience in, that you care about, and that you have like a slight interest in, but you haven't really like deeply studied it or anything yet. So the reason you want to pick industries that you care about is because when you have some spare time, you're most likely going to deep dive into these topics and these industries and these everything to, and your knowledge will like compound. So after a while, you're kind of not like maybe at least knowledgeable enough to write about. Like, I've written about the fitness industry for years, and in my spare time I'm doodling things like why tendons get sore and like the best recovery, like does it heat versus ice, like, and this nerdy stuff that I doodle and I'm curious about compounds over time and it fuels into each other, and then you're able to write about topics with much more knowledge than the average person that they're hiring. So when it's like them versus you, if they're smart and they're not just competing on price, you're going to win, right? So when you pick things you care about, you have more knowledge, you have experience, usually it compounds into each other and it builds. So that's why I think people should pick things that they give a damn about, because then it's easier to write about those things. It's not so painful. But I'm going to go through a master list. If you're still in the deciding phase, which like never asked me what you should write about, because I don't know your life or your hobbies or your interest or what's fun for you. If you just want something to bite your teeth into, look at like, giant. Oh, you can also look up pro blogger jobs. Just type that into Google, it'll pop up the site. That's like a whole bunch of people who are severely underpaying people. But it's a job board, and you can get a real taste for what clients are actually paying for out there, which is interesting, sometimes to see things like barbecue. Like, I can't believe how many barbecue posts I see. People who want you to like go out, buy some meat, grill it, cook it, talk about your experience. Wild. I firmly believe that if you have interests, you can find a way to write about them. Whether it's like you're writing for coaches in that industry or products or services or areas or... Okay, let's just dive into the master list of all the industries that I've made money in some way, shape, or form, or written about, or have an interest in, but I know and I've seen that there's ways to make... Okay, let's dive in. Fitness, wellness. Google is tracking down pretty hard on things like supplement companies and fitness websites, but oh my god, there are gyms you could write for, there are coaches, there are equipment, there's endless things. Storytelling and or writing and or copywriting and or freelancing and or screenplay writing and or blog post writing. Also keep in mind, if the barrier to entry is not that high for something, like anybody can just like start a blog in 3 seconds on WordPress.com or something. If the barrier to like getting into an interest is low and it's very easy to get into, there's going to be a lot more competition than if you're writing for something, like I always use the example of heart transplants, right? Like, you don't just like casually have some knowledge of like the research you need to do to order to even have a slight bit of interest to write about that topic is a lot. But also, what is my hair doing, Lord? It's my birthday week hair. Who asked you? But if you need to research a lot, you're competing with a lot less people. So it wouldn't be bad to figure out an industry or something that's like complicated and hard to... I should just fix this off screen and stop talking for a second. What are you doing? But it wouldn't be bad to pick an industry that's hard to start to dive into, because then you become a writer. Like writers I know who know software development and coding really well often have a lot of work because, it's not that hard to learn code in a very, very basic sense, but they get paid really well. They constantly have a full pipeline. They constantly have clients because you can't really just I could Google meditation and come up with a decent article in a few hours, right? I could pull in a whole bunch of advice and be like, okay, here's should you play music or not? Should you lay down or sit up? You can cover some of the basics. It doesn't mean meditation's easy to do. It just means I could cover some basics and pull some stuff. Now, if I was reading through and no idea what code is and then trying to read articles and understand what it is, it would probably take weeks to have even a basic understanding to build something like an app or software. You can't just Google that in an afternoon and understand it. Anyway, develop hard skills. Something we'll be talking about when I get into the deliberate practice, Cal Newport blog and idea. Okay, lifestyle design, easy barrier to entry, but there's a lot of debate right now around, working from home or commuting and remote work. There's a lot of debate right now in America, and I don't know how hot that'll be of a topic. I think it's going to grow continually because it's just, especially after the last year. But, that kind of lifestyle design, but if you really got into the nitty gritty of businesses and how they could transition to remote work, I think it's going to be a big thing down the line. Something to just keep in mind. And you could cover software that helps companies do that, tools, communication strategies, measuring productivity. Okay. Plants. Everything under the world of organic gardening, plants, permaculture, endless. Goal setting, productivity, all that world too. Planners, notebooks, productivity software, to-do apps, productivity coaches. Cool. Locations, towns, cities, things happening in your city, restaurants. Restaurants don't pay that well. Restaurants seems to be an industry that's kind of nah. They should spend more money on marketing than they do, but a lot of restaurants are barely just getting by in general. So they don't have a big marketing budget, which is a shame because I would be the best food copywriter. I would destroy all you bitches. It would be competitive. I would write about food all day, every day, but it's just a sad fact that restaurants don't have that much money. But tourism does. So find a way if you want to write about food or something like that. You could find an angle, but just don't go to restaurants hoping that they have money because they don't. So sadly, maybe a giant chain, but then usually they're working with agencies. Anyway, okay, pets of all kinds, hamsters, fish, dog trainers, shelters and nonprofits usually don't have money that much, but also I'm a big fan of, I think everybody should have a good chunk of time, at least 10% of your time to give to causes that you care about that don't necessarily have money, but you can help them in some way, especially because you're developing these skills to help them. A lot of them rely on fundraising. If you know how to do fundraising and do email marketing and get people interested to donate, I'm a big fan of that. So you could probably make a whole long list of the causes and things you care about and just work with them a little bit. And you never know. I've had clients who I've worked with and I just did it out of the, I'm not gonna be oh, I'm a good person, but I helped them. And then they ended up working at a giant company later on, and they left that and they were hey, I like you as a person. Marketing, networking tip. Okay, pets. So pets is a giant industry, and dog owners will spend so much money on their pets. Hi, it's me. So, music, which can be music teachers, music instruments, bands, kind of, sort of. Bands are also usually broke, but there's a realm in there of that kind of stuff. Okay, cities, locations, things based on writing for a certain industry. I wrote down, I'm a millennial woman, and there's so many articles written with the lens of paying off your student loans, having a baby for the first time, like those kinds of topics all fall under, aimed at my demographic. So you could just, maybe you're like a 50-year-old dude. Like, I'm sure there's some sites that are out there that are for your age group and your interests and which is sometimes hit or miss. Like, I understand that also things like Cosmo are marketed to me, and it's like, okay, like, not my interest. But I'm just saying, I'm just giving you the whole list so you can just go through and write down like things that you're interested in and things that I know make money, so you can start to dive into it. Okay. Gaming. Gaming is huge. Now, once again, very low barrier to entry. You can just download a game and now you're a gamer, right? I mean, and most people grew up playing video games to some extent or degree of something, so a lot of people have a lot of knowledge. It is very competitive, but there are people who write video game scripts. I see those often on Reddit. People looking for video script writers. Is the pay great? No. But it would help you get your foot in the door, because a lot of those EA games and all of them have script writers on staff if you wanted to go that route and go the employed route. But you could, like, people overlooked these other areas of writing, outside of just copywriting. But of course there is the copy for the game itself. There are, writing Steam profiles. A lot of games don't have very good descriptions of what the game is and what it entails. They rely a lot on YouTubers to just like review the game, but that's not always the best strategy. So, gaming products, Twitch streamers, that kind of thing. Okay. Food, specific kind of food, gluten-free food, keto food, vegan food, always popular. Be careful. The recipe world, very brutal. Little mommy bloggers on Pinterest will kick your butt in SEO. Don't even compete with mommy bloggers. They will whoop you. But you could help them. You could write for them. A lot of them sell recipe books. You could help them tweak it, or product descriptions, or anything like that. Email marketing. Even though a lot of people have their own blogs and their own sites, taking the work off of their plate is so incredibly helpful for 90% of businesses. Yes, there's a certain level of like high performers that are never like overwhelmed and busy and like struggling, but most of them are all of the above, and also both of them love when people come in and help them, give them better results, make their lives easier, take some things off their plate, always and forever. They will love that. So if there's a business under this industry, there's a way to write copy or blogs or social media or whatever angle you want for them. Cool. Okay. Food, travel, of course. Travel, like I said, is going to be huge. It's going to explode over this next year. Huge. Okay. Sports of all kinds. I wrote lacrosse because that was my life for all of high school, but I mean, there's like curling, there's field hockey, there's and not to mention the big boys, football, baseball, soccer, but there's like coaches in all that industry. There's products, there's gear, there's small teams, there's all kinds of stuff that you could find your little angle in. Okay. I wrote movies, which is hard because a lot of movies don't really use writing, but I know there's like production studios, and I know there's actors who are always looking to make their sites better, kind of encapsulate what they do and that they're for hire. I've seen a little here and there for movies that really invest in marketing. Usually they go with agencies, but I'm sure there's still some kind of way, if you were hellbound and determined to get into obviously there's screenplay writing and you could write movies, but in a copywriting sense, I'm sure there's a way in. And obviously you could just do like a movie review blog. Good luck, because everybody watches movies and everybody thinks that they're an expert in reviewing movies, myself included, even though I know nothing, honestly, truly. I read like Siskel and Ebert and I'm like, oh damn. Okay, that's why they made the big bucks, But outdoor stuff. Obviously I live in Colorado, so like hiking, biking, skiing, hiking trails, hiking guides, little, you know, you get the idea. Okay, kayaking, all that kind of stuff. Specific types of people in industries, like, like I know one huge event out in San Fran is Women in Tech. Huge. I mean, it's a giant conference. So I know, like there's a lot of, I have a friend who works for a women's gaming, I think they're like a talent agency scouting kind of thing. So, like there's always like who you are and like the industry you in, and like you could probably find some way to write about that, or network with people, or build even a group of people in that industry and like get your foot in the door that way. Maybe you just collect everybody who's like, I don't know, Italian restaurant owners in New York. That's probably a huge group, but like, something like that. And I'm sure there's some kind of group and like organization, and it probably doesn't pay well, but writing a few things in that for the sake of networking is also something you have to think about. You also have to think about like 3 steps ahead of getting your name out there if you want to do this in the long term and you want to do it for a while. How you could kind of establish yourself in an industry. Like, your blog doesn't get any readers, right? Like, let's be real, okay? I mean, most people don't have the time or the wherewithal to compete with these giant SEO production companies that are putting out content 24/7. It's very hard to compete in the blogging world and make your blog stand out. But you use a platform, like if it was Women in Tech, and I was a CEO of a tech company, I'd find a ghostwriter or write a blog myself to, like write something thought-provoking and smart and interesting from your angle. Also, just ghostwriting for CEOs is a giant pain thing, because almost no CEOs, if you think all those CEOs who write like their good thoughtful Medium posts are writing that themselves, that's so cute. I was also shocked too. I thought they were all just extremely prolifically literate and brilliant. That's mostly ghostwriters writing all that. Not that there aren't some CEOs who are great writers, but for the most part, they're not writing their own blogs. Cool. Like, if you think Gary Vaynerchuk ever sat down and wrote a blog in his life, that's so cute. But that's an industry you can get into. But in terms of building your own brand, find your own angle and write for it. It may or may not pay well, but like I have a lot of friends who like write in their industry and their certain thing, and they just write blogs with their angle and their experience and things they've gone through and their journey. And although like that doesn't pay well, like all of these clients who are in that come to them because their story resonated, or they want to hire, like I work with a lot of like women business owners. That's I didn't always, but like I have been lately, and like it's kind of nice, and it's like you kind of relate to each other of like, oh yeah, like, yeah, sent me another pic on Instagram for no reason, like it's just things that you're like, relatable. Okay. Productivity, kids and technology. There's a huge industry of, kids getting into STEM and toys and products and kind of things that get them interested into these careers and like make it fun for them. Also, keeping kids safe online. There's a million sites and articles and software and things that do that. You could write for one of those if that's a passion for you, like, making sure creeps can't get anywhere near your kids. Survival, huge thing. I mean, be ready for a lot of like tinfoil hat wearing. The apocalypse is coming any minute now, but it's a huge industry. You can always write about, now be careful because it is intellectual property, but you could write about famous things in, like, I've seen James Bond blogs, and it's kind of like, okay, what's the watch he is wearing? What's that suit? What is this? What is his car? What is his alcohol? Like, or people who write about like Fortnite or like Minecraft or other giant like I said, be careful because these are people's intellectual property and it depends on how picky they are. You can't just like buy Minecraft.com. I'm pretty sure, like toe lightly, but there are a lot of ways to like find your way in and like write for these things if you have a passion of like some kind of business or like I've seen blogs about Tacoma trucks, and it's like all the add-ons that you can add to the back of the truck and like customizing it and making it fun and fancy and rim options and all of these things that are like specific to just that. So if you have like a company or project you're passionate about, you can probably find a way in. Cool. Okay. Oh, this would take forever, so let me just talk a lot faster. Photography. Real estate, huge, 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 forever. Comedy, if that's your thing. Home living, which also like includes like Martha Stewart-esque type energy of like home tips and tricks and, that thing. Sports, of course, more locations. What else did I write about? Business. I'm not even going to get into all the different options there. I think that's pretty clear. Clothing, whether it's a certain fashion sense, men's style is a huge industry. Obviously, women's fashion is huge. There's designers. There's people who come dress you. Stylists, whatever they're called. Home security, home cameras, home tech, home smart devices, Google, financial, food, again, sports, coffee, tea, sushi, all those kinds of things. Certain people like writing about athletes and that kind of world, that kind of falls into journalism and writing about people, but there is a market definitely for writing for sites that cover athletes and you could write about to them. I'm sure there's also like celebrities, of course. Careful, because that one also does not pay as well, and also the mental, if you're writing about something that is very fresh all the time, like, okay, Chrissy Teigen tweets and you need to have that article up in 30 minutes. Mental, just a side note, you save your sanity unless you're cool with being connected to the internet 24/7. I am not. I was for a long time in my career. I wrote a lot about like newsworthy topics, or I managed social media for giant companies, which is fine. But if you want like good work-life balance and like, I wrote a social media post and then like who knew it would have gotten taken the extremely wrong way than like how we meant it. I didn't write, well, I posted it, but I didn't really write it. It was an event that the company I was writing for was doing and it got taken the extremely wrong way. So that was not fun, having a Saturday night, having like 127 comments coming in on Instagram, popping off. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, celebrity world sucks. Okay, but if you love it, celebrities will always be a thing to write about. Notebooks, marketing, certain types of living, like living on the beach, living in cabins, living, like coastal living is a giant, it's owned by Condé Nast or whatever it is. Like, it's a huge magazine, which I think is also a website now too, but magazine. True crime / scary stories, like ghost stuff and all that. I don't think it pays that well, but I've gotten paid for writing about like serial killers, little articles here and there. It's, if you want to dive into that, things like peak performance, like performing at your absolute best. That's a thing. Low barrier to entry, but things like very, very niche hobbies, like being a pilot. Cool. Hard skills, like if you know how to do like sound mixing, or you know about a certain software like Final Cut Pro or something and you know it really well. Not only, it's hard to write it for the actual product or service itself. Like, I don't imagine I could get in the realm of Adobe and like get on their radar. I mean, if I could, I'm sure if I wanted to, if I was like hell bent on it, but I'm not. But if you looked up like, you know, people who do classes on teaching like Adobe Cut or no, Final Cut Pro, you know, like there's so many courses and classes and coaches and stuff, and like that's the realm that you could get into of like helping coaches sell their products or services or whatever it is, or even just start a niche site for yourself, which I think every writer should do just for fun. Just so you don't be completely bored with all of your not that client work is boring, but there is a fun element of like being able to write a blog that does not need to be approved by someone. You can just like write what the hell you want to say and just make it fun, or like use your own voice, like truly let your own voice like be out there. It's the only way I've been able to keep my sanity, because as the copywriter, you don't get any credit. Really, you know, like it's someone else's company and business, and yes, it is the most rewarding thing to bring somebody's business to life and like give it the words and give it the like life that it needs to exist on the internet. But also it's not yours. You know what I mean? Anyway, I just think that's a side tangent. So you should pick one of these and then write like your own little blog about it. Now, of course, building up a blog is a whole nother giant conglomerate of a beast of a project, but just keep that in mind. Okay. All of these fall under all kinds of other things. Like minimalism, technology, books. Books are hard because it's just like movie reviews where it's kind of like, oh, everybody does it, so you're competing with a lot of people, but there is a space for that. And there's a space for helping authors market their book. That's another thing. Cool little things like specialized industries, like, you know, like the scooters that are in all the major cities now from like Lyft and Uber, and like writing about like the laws that are updating about like, I think it's called microbility is the specific tiny little name for it, but business, of course, niche things like I wrote cider. Like I can't believe beer is such a big industry. Just writing about like how to brew your own beer and like beer reviews and like all of these things. Like beer copy is one of the few fun things that I see out there. Like there's a lot of beer. I live in Colorado too, so it's a giant beer state. But like there's a lot of home brewers here, and like the copy on the bottle is so much fun. And I love it because I'm so used to the giant, you know, ones. Of course, when I need to think, Kahlua, you know, like they don't have, I don't think they have any fun copy. Smirnoff has no fun copy, you know, like it's just Smirnoff and then like all the warnings, you know. But I love little small companies and little breweries who can have fun with their copy. Big fan of that. Cool. And then also like little hobbies here and there. Like people love to build little model cars. Does that pay extremely well? I don't know, but it could. Like there's some, you know, I know helping people on Etsy sell their businesses and sell their products and stuff is a huge potential if you decided to go a specific route for like helping a certain type of client or business or whatever. Utilize Etsy to make sure they're making sales, because most people have side hustles these days. Okay, long video, that's it. There you go. All of the potential niches, business ideas. So I can now send this to anybody who emails me and is like, what niche should I write for? And I'll be like, here's 50 options. So that is it. Like I said, if you have an interest in something, you can find a way. You can find a way. Unless it's really weird. But even then, there's probably something for you. That is it. Thank you for watching. Pew pew. I may have a birthday video going up. I may not, and I may just be in a sushi coma, so we will see. Okay, that's it. Bye, guys.